Ready? Okay. Everybody hear me? Okie dokie. Here we go. Now, a couple of things before I get started. First of all, everybody aware what xPaaS is? I'm going to take a look here. Anybody have an idea what a cloud is? Okay, now we're getting warm. Anybody know what a PaaS is? And for the rest of you, don't worry about it. We're going to teach you all about that in the next 2 times 180 minutes, it appears like. I brought a couple of things along here. These are really old OpenShift things. Anybody that's interested that can come down here and show me something that they've done in this session on their laptop, because the whole idea of these university sessions is that we're going to do something together, right? So everything I have is online. Everything is available for you to do as we go along. I'll try to point out a few places where you have to do stuff, and we'll see what happens. So if you could show me that, first two people can have one of these shirts. These are retro shirts. You won't find these anymore. They're about 4 years old. These logos don't exist. There's a couple of stickers and stuff up here for the rest of you that are too lazy to participate or not interested or forgot your laptop or it broke or whatever the deal is. I've brought some toys for everybody. Okay, who am I? Let's see where we're looking at here. This is such a huge area here. My name's Aerogear. I'm working for Red Hat. I'm a JBoss technology evangelist. What that means is I get to go around and talk about a lot of cool stuff that we do. I don't generally talk about OpenShift so much anymore. That's kind of a hobby thing for me on the side. We'll get to that in a minute. But mostly middleware, and I focus on the business rules and the BPM stuff. So you're going to see me lean on that a little bit when we get up into the more interesting stuff. If you notice here at the very top there, I'm doing this locally just so I don't bother you guys. But you can do this online, so everybody can follow with your laptop, your mobile, your iPads, your whatever you got, your Google tablets, I don't care what you got, you can follow along. So don't feel if I'm limiting your speed or whatever, you can continue on ahead. You can also do all of this offline after this is done. It's sort of a workshop format, so you can do this anytime you like online. Okay? If you can't read it, it says mastering xPaaS-on-the.rhcloud.com. Okay? Get that one out of the way. We had a bit of a scare this morning. Starting yesterday at about 11 o'clock in the evening our time, we had this issue pop up. I've learned a few things over the years, which we'll get to in a minute about the different sorts of online cloud that you can do. But the one that we'd like to demo is the one that you can take home and you can play with and for free. And this is the one that went offline. There was no SSO authentication, which means nobody could log in, nobody could do anything with this stuff. That would have been a really boring session. We just sat here like this and stared at each other for 3 hours. But luckily they got that sorted out about a half hour ago. So now we can actually get in there. So let's get started. The first thing I would like you to do, and we're going to say this at least 3 times so you'll do it. I say if you say something 3 times, you never forget about it. Please log in, register on OpenShift.com if you'd like to participate in what we're doing today. You're going to need an account. It's pretty easy. It's the most difficult thing you're going to do today as far as time consuming. So if you do that now, answer an email, everybody's happy, and you can go. Okay? What this looks like is roughly, this is the planning. The red part is on the slides here are links. Don't get scared. It's not like it's bad stuff that it's red. That's just links. We're going to walk a little bit through a tour. I can't get away with just doing hands-on the whole time because you won't be able to follow what's going on, I think. The whole idea about this is you can take somebody that has the ability to develop, the ability to do stuff in a normal job, to do stuff coding, to do apps, whatever you're going to do, and then to be able to now do this in the cloud and find out what this stuff means and what is easy for you to use. I'll get into the tooling. We'll talk about how to install that. I'll show you how to do it. How many Windows users we got? With a laptop here that wants to participate. See, that's only 2. Okay. You guys are taken care of too, don't worry about it. It might be a little bit more difficult for you. For some of the demos, you don't even need any kind of install locally whatsoever. I have some stuff set up you can play with yourself. So by the end of this first half, we're going to have our first application in the cloud. That's the whole idea here, right? And the second half, we're going to start diving a little bit more into what a PaaS is and what an xPaaS is. So taking baby steps, we're going to climb up the ladder and get to the difficult stuff. So in the end, you're going to be mastering xPaaS. That's the whole plan here. So let's start off with a tour. I have to give you some perspective on what we're talking about here, right? So very simply put, we have a stack in an organization. Something is about infrastructure, something is about platforms, something is called xPaaS we're not too sure about yet, and then you have software as a service that's leveraging all this stuff and just selling software, right? Using software at the top. So what's infrastructure as a service? What is that? How many people here are admins? Maybe a half a hand. That's really good, because I tend to piss them off with this slide. All right? We are developers. This is who we're targeting at this level. I know it's fascinating. I know virtualization is cool. I know all this stuff is amazing, how they set this stuff up, but I really don't care. All right? So when you start asking me, how secure this? How do they do this? How do they do this underneath the water? How do they spin this stuff up? Repeat after me. I don't care. Right? Do you have a question? No? Just waving at me? The whole idea here is not that I'm being rude about people that are doing infrastructure. Are there DevOps here? Proud DevOps. See, you guys kind of got screwed. Huh? You're part of a developer organization, and now you got to do the operation stuff a bit too, right? I hate that. The idea here being we don't want to focus on that. We want to focus on what we do in our day job, the cool stuff we build, the neat tools we get to use, the libraries you're being shown here, all the tricks you're learning at DevOps. That's what we're paid to do. That's what we studied for. That's what we enjoy the most, right? So then we move on up into the PaaS layer, and that's where we're at. How many people here are responsible for estimating the time it takes to get their project done? How many people here hit those deadlines all the time? Yeah, you're lying. No. How many people add 80% to their estimations just in case? You know what I'm saying? You've all been there, right? So the whole idea with PaaS is that we don't have to deal with all this crap. It's got to do with you've developed your app, you're ready to go, you move it to the next level, you get something spun up by the ops department. It's supposed to be really fascinating and easy to use. It's supposed to have data sets all configured and all that kind of stuff. And I spend a good 2, 3, 4 days as lead developer sorting that garbage out because it doesn't work, right? We've all been there. I hate that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take something called OpenShift, and I'm going to give you 3 hammers for free. Absolutely free. Ooh, don't know what that was. The reason I say 3 hammers, and you see that all 3 are different, right? Because you can use them to do anything you want. You can spin up something for a web app. You can spin up something for PHP. You can spin up something for .NET even nowadays. There's all kinds of stuff we could spin up. So what we want to have you do is focus on doing what you develop and not worried about how it works under the water, right? I do have to warn you, when you take this step, if you've never done this before, is there anybody here that's never done anything with OpenShift at all? Never deployed anything in the cloud ever. And I don't mean that little weird stuff that you have in the building that they call cloud. I mean like out there someplace for free. This is going to change your world. You're never going to look back. This happened to me about 4 years ago when they first acquired this company and brought them into Red Hat. And at first I thought, yeah, cloud, more infrastructure stuff, DevOps, whatever. Then I sat down at another talk and heard a guy talking about it, and I flipped open my laptop, and in 2 minutes I had a thing spun up faster than I could install it locally. That's what it's about. It's about never looking back. Because what do? We code. Maybe some of you started when you were really little. Maybe some of you really love to have a certain IDE set up, however, and that's pretty much our ideal workplace. Maybe some people prefer to have no windows and be in a basement. There could be a little bit of variation on this picture, but we really like what we do. We want to be left in the corner. We don't want to be messed with. We want our tea, our coffee. Very important things to us. So why are we messing around with the stack every time we get something deployed? Why are we messing around with data connections? Why are we messing around with data sets? Why are we trying to configure this or that? These are the things that eat up your time and absolutely kill your estimations, right? This is the stuff you're unable to get your projects done on time. So a little bit of history behind what we're using here today. 2010, we acquired it from a company called Makara. If anybody heard of that, it was a startup in California, in San Francisco area. Took a little while, but they merged it into an OpenShift project. That's the name it got. This is the original logo when they did that. So these are like really vintage shirts here. Hard to get. The reason we had to get rid of them, just a side note, is because the logo there is with perspective. You're looking below up at the logo. You can't print that on stuff. They don't like that. It got open sourced in 2012. And originally there was 2 offerings. One was pretty much what you see today, and the other one was a Flash-based monitoring online tool. that had to be open sourced, and there was very little interest in the world to use it, so they just dropped it and stuck with what we have now. I did an OpenShift Primer ebook, a very small book about how to get started, so a little bit more along the lines of what I did last year as a talk here. This one's going to go much deeper. We did in 2013, you have the online public PaaS, and an enterprise version. So we're going to get a little bit into the details about how that works, but you have stuff online, stuff offline, internal to your organization or external to your organization. And then we start talking about these xPaaS services. So that's a little bit of what we're going to get in today, so I won't get too deep here yet. There's an online marketplace that was launched this year. That's pretty cool. That's basically letting third-party people spin up their stuff in that as a cartridge, as something you can use on this platform. Go ahead and look on the website at that if you're interested in that. These are like pre-canned solutions that are available to you. And they've also extended out the reach into the South America and into the Asian markets. So originally there was only East Coast, West Coast, Amazon type of hosting in their data centers. You'll see today that we have the option to deploy it here in Europe. So in Ireland, I believe it's being hosted. And pretty soon they're going to release the version 3, which is going to have Docker backend stuff. So when you're looking at some of this Docker stuff, this will give you an idea how they're going to spin up these instances and stuff. There's been lots of talks about this all over the world. There's a guy right now that's freaking out in Tokyo because he didn't have any access to the stuff when it all crashed this morning. So he's quite happy it's back up too. He's going to be talking about that over there. If you want to watch last year's session, that's me talking up here about the OpenShift Primer stuff. So that's basically keeping it within the 45-minute frame and talking about how you can do this kind of stuff without actually showing you. And this year I get to show you. Okay, so now you're able to talk about ISaaS, right? I don't care. You're able to talk a little bit about what a PaaS is, so being able to deploy your applications onto some sort of platform without hassling with all the details, configuring the server. But what's an xPaaS? Now, I purposely took a little bit simpler slide set here. You're going to see in the keynote, I think it's Wednesday when they kick that off for the other half of DevOps, there's going to be a keynote where they start talking about more complex elements than an app component. There'll be talks around referring to microservices and these kind of things. But for our purposes, what you're looking at is a private cloud, public cloud, whether it's virtualized physical, whether it's a public or a private infrastructure as a service, racks in your data centers, whatever it happens to be, and you have your apps that you deploy on top of that. And what we're looking to do is reduce the complexity and the risk by presenting this stuff as platform as a service, so a consistent standard way of spinning up instances for you to work on. Whether you're a Ruby developer, whether you're a Perl developer, whether you're a Java developer, I really don't care. So the idea is to mask all this complexity and configuring of machines and providing a consistent way to spin these things up for you. Now keep in mind what you're being offered and what you're going to see today is just a standard packet of what they have online right now. But when you do this internally with an enterprise setup in your organization, you can do the same layer, the same access, the same tooling, but you're allowed to define your own cartridges. So thinking ahead, normally when I deploy software in my bank I used to work at a long time ago, you have a development environment, you have a test environment, an acceptance environment, and a production environment. It's very easy to see cartridges that match these configurations, right? That's the whole idea. Now let's reduce the work a little bit more and put more higher level services on top of that. So Gardeners and those kind of analysts have been talking about xPaaS stuff, so application PaaS, so an application server as a platform as a server, integration PaaS, all these kind of things, BPM PaaS, mobile PaaS. So the whole idea being here, we're going to leverage the OpenShift to provide a standard way of spinning it up, and then we're going to have even more complex services offered on top of that. Things like doing BPM, like doing rules, like doing events, like doing camel routes, integrating your whole things, doing, excuse me, doing any kind of mobile application development and stuff like that. Okay? We're going to walk through all of these by the end of the day. Some of the components that are offered from the JBoss side, which is what I'm going to lean on because I like open source and that's the stuff I work with. So JBoss Fuse and JBoss Data Virtualization are offered in the iPaaS framework right now as a certified purchasable thing, fully supported. The BPM PaaS is based on the BPM suite, also involves a business rules management suite in there you'll get to see today. Those are alpha cartridges, targeted sometime next year to be actually released. We have Aerogear project behind the mobile PaaS stuff, and JBoss EAP as our, and Wildfly, some of the stuff you might see here on Wildfly is the upstream community version of that, is the application PaaS. So, are there any questions so far? Make sense? Pretty logical, I just climb up the ladder, right? So again, the second time here, please register if you want to participate and join me in doing this stuff, right? The whole idea is to go to the OpenShift page, there's a login, and there's a sign up link there. Give you a quick look at it, and well, it's not that hard. So if you go to sign up, all you got to do is put in an email address, a password twice, and then write this number down and you're good to go. Very easy. Once you've done that, you can log in. And I'll come back here in a second. Make sure we stick in line with what we're doing. Let's get the tools installed first here before we wander around. So there's the ability to do this in a web console like we just logged into, which you now are signing up for and going to participate in. There's also the ability to install the tools locally. There's a tool set called RHC, Red Hat Cloud, right? And before we get too much farther down the road, it might get a little confusing. You're going to hear several different terms when you talk to people about OpenShift. There's Origin, Online, and Enterprise. Now the Origin is the completely upstream community where you can go download the bits, try to build it locally, and install it all locally on your machine as if you have a cloud-supported system there. It's kind of previewing the stuff that's coming down the pipeline that will eventually put in OpenShift Online, and that's the public cloud. That's the stuff we're playing with today. This is sign up, 3 free gears. You get 3 free instances, 3 hammers to play with, right? You can do whatever you want with them. You're going to find out it's an awful lot like what you had with some of the stuff you set up with Git. You're going to set up an instance, you're going to work on it for a while, and you're going to break it, and you're just going to throw it away and spin up a new one because that's faster than fixing the server the way it is now. So it's a big difference between the way you've been trying to deploy your applications and mess around with these new development environments. You're now going to be able to just throw it away and spin it back up in a couple of minutes. I do it like 30, 40 times a day when I'm messing with this stuff. The OpenShift Enterprise is to be installed locally, managed locally. You can define your cartridges. It's a completely supported environment. That's when you start getting into the private cloud sector where you say, okay, in my enterprise, I want to take all my servers, put this layer on top of it, define some cartridges, and this is how we're going to work. Right? So how do we get this stuff done? We have a quick start order here. The hardest part is signing up, and then we're going to install the client tools. There's different ways to do that, whether you're on a Unix-based system, whether you're on a Red Hat system, or whether you're on a Windows system. And we'll take a look at that. And you're going to need to define a domain, and if you looked at how these were hosted on this, everything's always the same. So when you go to the way I'm hosting, if you look there at the top, you're going to see the first section there, that's the app name. So mastering xPaaS is the name of my app. But before I can do that, I have to define a domain, and all the domains are underneath rhcloud.com. You can reconfigure this to point to your private addresses and stuff, but this is basically where they're hosted. So my domain is on the. Way back in the beginning, you could get all the good ones like this, so I got all the good ones. You guys aren't going to get any good ones. On the cloud, in the cloud, by the cloud, I got them all. So come up with something fun to make you the name remember. You can remember the name of your app and find it. But these domains, when you register, you're going to be able to put 2 domains under each one of your registrations. Now, registration is based on an email address, so I say you're getting 3 from me, but as many email addresses you can come up with, you can get 3 more, right? So don't think that that's limiting. And I'll also show you how to extend it out if you want to pay a little bit for usage. So when we talk about creating a domain, we're talking about creating that in the or on the before the RH Cloud section, right? You got to pick a name. And then application is when you decide what am I going to run and what am I going to call it. So is it going to be a PHP app and we'll call it mastering the xPaaS, or will it be a Java application that's doing something else with a mobile app? And then once you've created it, if you're doing the local tooling, he's going to spin that thing up out there in the cloud, and he's going to provide a Git repository locally. So he's going to automatically check that out and put it locally so you can start developing your code locally. And every time you push, instead of going to a Git server, it's now going to spin it up in the cloud right away. You go to that URL and you can find it. If you do it in the web console, and we'll do both here in a second. When you do it in the web console tooling, then you're going to do everything except for get the local repository, but it's going to print how you can check it out. So maybe you're not even interested in checking it out. Could be. So third time, last time I think. So sign it up. It also includes some of the help stuff. There's on IRC, on Freenode, you'll find an OpenShift channel. They're pretty chatty on there, so they'll help you out if you have any questions or point you in the right direction. You can also find out what's holding stuff up if something's broken or things like that. There's a very active blog cycle, a whole lot of examples, and the GitHub there is a link to a whole bunch of quick starts. So everything you see today is going to be an awful lot like these quick starts. So you can find many more there. So let's see how we install this stuff. Is that a little bit viewable there? Can you make it a little bigger? Not really. When we're working from an OS X Mac or something like that, or almost any other form of Unix besides RHEL or Fedora, they use a little bit different pre-installed repos that include all this stuff, but you see also they're using Ruby gems. It's just a gem install. So if you want to install it now, you can do that. And the thing about the Windows side of the house is you first need to make sure you have Git. You first need to make sure you have, what's the other part? The Ruby. Generally, that's not a standard install on a machine from Windows. So for the guy up there, did you get that all sorted out yet, or you working on it? The Windows guy. Working on it. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on you and see how it's going. There's an article linked right there, so if you are following the presentation, you can click right on, it'll show exactly what to do and where to get the Ruby and the Git stuff. Okay? And once you have those two elements, it looks just like what we do on every other Unix machine. You just go to a console and you install the Ruby gem. That's all it is. And I already have it installed, but we can do it again. Right? Everybody see that? Is that big enough? Does it need to be bigger? So I'm doing it as the root user. It's going to ask me for a password, RHC. And then we just wait a little bit and he'll install some stuff. Right? So depending upon how you manage your Ruby stuff, I mean, I'm not a Ruby master. I did some Ruby a long time ago. I don't really keep up on that stuff. So every once in a while I do a gem update and it picks up the new fixes. They maintain this in pretty much 2-week cycles right now. It's pretty much what's coming out. They're really active about this stuff. So how many people are trying to install this right now? Ooh, not bad. Hey, I'm impressed. So maybe we're going to break the internet. So I'll keep talking while that's doing that. We'll come back over here in a second. Should do something. It's doing a lot of thinking. But by me, he's just going to run through the packages and show you what he's already installed, pretty much. But you see here, when he actually installs it for the very first time, and this laptop was new this last week, so it did it to me too. You see a whole bunch of dependencies, documentation, and stuff being installed. There it goes. Here we go. No, nothing exciting to talk about. And what you end up with is, that's a little bit big. All right, C, H. So you end up with some, there you go. A bunch of tooling that allows us to do everything you're going to see in the web app online, but then you're doing it from the command line. And one of the things I learned based on what happened today with the whole SSO failing and we couldn't get in there anymore is, I can show you this, clear it out, RHC authorization list. And what this is going to show you is the token it gives to you. See that green stuff there? It says expires in 23 days. That meant no matter what happened with the SSO stuff, I could still work for 23 days. So that's kind of a funny thing to know in case you're going to demo this or play with this for anybody. There's really no way to get around working. You know, if it goes down, and we pretty much can't do what we're doing, right? It's cloud. It doesn't do any fun to have all these apps running locally on my machine. We need to do these in the cloud. So this is a really good tip for you if you're going to demo this someplace or do any kind of talk like this or show your boss something. Make sure you at least have a token that's valid for a few days. And you can always do the command line stuff. That's where you end up anyway most of the time because we're developers and we like to see what's going on, right? So while you guys are installing that, I'll keep talking a little bit farther. We're going to do all this, but I'm going to walk through some of the screens and show you some of the stuff, and so give you a little background so when you see me doing it, you understand what we're talking about. This is using the two different ways to do it. So I try to show using the RHC command. So here we're doing a domain create, and you fill in some domain name, and he'll create it. Or you go online, and you can fill it in there. And once you've chosen one of these, it'll automatically be filled up when you use an app. If you have two different domains, you'll get a pull-down menu when you make your app to decide whether you want to use which domain you want to fill up. Now, we'll go over to my live one, but this is a screenshot from a while ago. Now, what you'll notice is the applications at the top there, you'll see 9 of 16 gears. So being an internal to Red Hat guy, they made our setup a bronze level. So for some of these xPaaS things, you require larger gear sizes, and we'll get to that, and that's part of the deal is being a bronze person, so bronze account level. I'll show you what that is in a second. But if we go look over on the real one, we can see a little bit bigger there. So I now have 13 instead of that, but you see some of these stuff have been spun up. You can see this is in a BPM suite. You can see I have an enterprise application platform here. I have a Fuse thing going here. I have a Wi-Fi thing down here, a push server over here. There's all kinds of stuff we can do. And these things generally take 1 gear each. When you initially sign up and just have a free version, you have 3 gears. So those are your 3 hammers, right? So when you go over to the settings page, I'll go ahead and do that so you can see it live instead of on there. Now you're looking at your account, and one of the things he's going to talk about is upgrading. We'll go to that in a second, but you can see the public keys. When you initially use the RHC command line tool, it's going to ask for, and if you don't have them, generate them and upload these keys. That's how he accesses and talks back and forth without having to type the password all the time. Excuse me. So you see here this jBPM. This is my laptop I'm working on right now. I got rid of all my other keys. Should somebody happen to want to help out on your app or work with your app or whatever, ask them for their public key and you can just drop it in there. And if you want to add a key, it's just cut and paste, I think. Yeah, you can just cut and paste the contents in there. Okay? And that allows them to log in and clone it and all that kind of stuff. You see I have 2 domains here. If I only had one, it would say you could add another domain. And these are some of the sessions that are running right now, so that's not so exciting. Now, the gears story. When you talk about a gear, when I spin up an instance, 1 gear is 500 megabytes and 1 gigabyte of storage, unless it says otherwise. If you start upgrading, you'll get bigger gear sizes and more memory per gear and stuff like that. So depending upon what you're doing with that, but if you're using the free stuff, we're talking just about 500 and 1 gigabyte. That means you have 3 gigabytes of storage and 1.5 megabytes on memory. You're going to see some stuff in here about I spin up a gear, a cartridge. I choose a PHP cartridge. I put it on 1 gear. When you're thinking about how something runs on your machine, for the people that understand this, a gear requires a user to use. So if you put up a Jenkins server generally runs under its own username. So that's 1 gear. So if I set up a Wildfly instance and start working on my EAP or on my Java application, and I put a Jenkins server in there too, we're now talking about 2 gears you've used, right? So keep that in mind a little bit of how that goes. There's also a little box you can check on about scalability. Scalability has nothing to do with memory for you Java guys. So if you put scalable and then you start running out of your memory because your app is eating it all up, it's going to fail at 500. Scalability is only for the web port. So you put an app up that's being hit really hard, like somebody slash dots your thing, and they start pounding it, then if it's scalable, it'll throw all the gears it has at it to load balance that port. Right? So it basically puts a load balancer in front of it and puts more instances behind it until you run out of gears. Okay? You run out of gears, you run out of gears. So the upgrade stuff, we can go look at that. So if you want to upgrade your account. So it says mine's free, but they've tweaked it to make it bronze, basically without charging. So there's no monthly fee for the bronze. It has 3 small gears just like this one does, and you get a maximum of 16. So that's what you're looking at, what I have. You do have to pay for stuff when it's running. That's how it works. Okay? And you can go to larger one and get more gears, more sizes. And you see here you get 6 gigabytes per gear, and things get really huge, right? So this is just the online story, just so you're aware of that. All right, who's ready to start making something? How's the Windows guy doing? You ready to go? All right, he's ready to go. If he's ready, you guys must be ready. So the first thing we're going to do is take the initial step here. We got our applications. Yours should be empty. But you're going to say, let's add one. And what you're going to get is a whole list of stuff that's available for you to choose from. You have something called feature apps. These are things that they're going to push and that are new and that are interesting and exciting. In this case, we have the xPaaS thing is featured because it's only been released, I think, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. It's JBoss Fuse in the cloud. The business management suite is in the cloud, so the BPM stuff. And the Aerogear one is featured. And there's more. You can look at more of them. And you have something called instant apps here. Things like Jenkins server, which means they set up an application server with Jenkins set up, so when you put your code in the source code directory, if it has any tests and they fail, it will not deploy it. So it's using Jenkins to double check that your stuff is going to be deployable. You have Aerogear stuff, you have complete setups for WordPress and stuff, so you can put your blog up here in the cloud if you want to. Instead of having to install, I think that's what is WordPress? I think that's PHP? Yeah, it's a PHP server, and then you install a MySQL database behind it. You have to configure all that. You have to load the tables, and then you can kickstart the WordPress. He does all that for you. You just spin it up, and it's ready to go. Those are the instant apps. Some of the xPaaS stuff we'll get back to. And then you have areas. So like PHP, you see we offer 5.3, 5.4, a Zen server pre-configured, and something called CodeIgniter. Okay. I don't use that. Does anybody here use CodeIgniter? Awesome. What is it? Okay, there you go. It's a PHP framework. So you test it, tell us if it works. I don't have all these stuff in my toolbox. Okay, Ruby. We got Ruby 1.9, 2.0 just got released. 1.8 still in there. You got Rails 3 and 4. Any Rails developers here? Ooh, must be a dying breed. Used to be a lot of you last year. What happened? Did y'all switch? Anybody ever done Rails? See, what happened? Okay, Python, some of the frameworks you can do there. Node.js is in here. The Go language from Google's in here. Perl's in here. So you got quite a bit of stuff in here. And if you look under the Java stuff, it's a smorgasbord on stuff. Everything from the old AS7 to some enterprise web server stuff based on Tomcat, the Wildfly stuff, and Vertex. Anybody doing anything with Vertex? That's a pretty good talk. So you know what I'm talking about when we talk about microservices, right? Yeah. So that's some of the Vertex stuff you can play with. So we're going to take a look at some of this stuff. Let me get back on track here. Feature we talked about. So let's go ahead and spin up one. Now, I thought would be kind of fun would be to do a DevOps mobile app, so just like registering for the conference, right? That would be a good idea. And once we've done that, you're going to see something like this. If we're going to do it first in the web console here, and then you see it comes out here and gives you here the chance to clone it locally. So he can't do that from the web. So he sets it all up and does everything except that. When we do it from the command line tooling with RHC, you're going to see that he downloads everything locally and you can start developing it. So let's go take a look at that. So let's go over here and put together, show you what it's based on. I think it's the next slide here. I did want to make you guys attent about the open issues. Sometimes you'll see at the top, if you look close, I think I have some in here. I'll try to point it out. There. If you look in the top right corner, that red or that little yellow sign there that says one open issue, if something's going on, you'll see that pop up. You click on it and you end up with a view like this. I kind of highlighted how you could, that we had an issue this morning and you could see what the deal was. It's good to know about this. Once you get it spun up, you're going to see that it shows you the DevOps thing in the cloud and you can go to it. And if all goes well, it should look like this. And if you open this on your mobile device, so it's DevOps dash in the Red Hat Cloud. This is one view. This is an HTML5 mobile-enabled app. If you do it on a iPad or a tablet or a phone, it looks a little bit different. It's going to pop up looking like a mobile app should. So you have the ability also to add cartridges. If you look close here, oops, go back one. If you look down here at the bottom, it says you're going to be able to add some extra stuff to your cartridge. So maybe I have more interesting stuff to do. Things like a MongoDB, you have different databases, you have the ability to add Switchyard, to put PHPMyAdmin in there. This is not a complete list all the time. Depending upon what cartridge you're using, what setup you're using is going to offer what's available to you. So should your app need a database and persistence backend, you can spin that up. Okay? There's also another option. You're able to do this stuff in an IDE. How many people here use Eclipse, or Eclipse-based IDE? Wow, that's about, well, let's see. If everybody raises their hand, then I can like count them off and see what's going on here. So it's about half of you are using that. The tooling that we have is based on Eclipse, JBoss Tools, if you've seen that, and it's fully integrated in the IDE. So anybody that's used to working with a server with their current development inside of that IDE, an OpenShift server looks exactly the same. So every time you push your code, it's just going to, it's in the server tab, it's going to push it out into the cloud. It's all connected, so it's the same normal development cycle you're used to doing. You don't have to learn anything special. I'll show you that in a bit. Here you see the command line REC app create, and we're going to create some kind of app, and you get to pick what you want, and then you get to add some code to it, and then you push it, and you're ready to go. I'll show you what the Developer Studio looks like. I'll go down here. This one just happens to be the JBoss Developer Studio because it's already packaged and done. It's the same thing as just adding JBoss tools to your Eclipse IDE. And what you'll see here is I've already logged in with my account. And remember the overview page we just had? Now here you see my 2 domains. By that has the web, should have the Wildfly one in there. And you see the listing of my apps. And you see here I was playing around with the DevOps one, and you can import it here, and you see all your code here. And anything I do over here that gets pushed goes automatically out to the server. So it's basically nothing different than what I normally would develop with. It's really straightforward. If you want to create a new project, we can look for an OpenShift thing here. And you'll see here that there's an OpenShift application. And now he's dealing directly with the server based on my user password. It's going to make sure I have enough gears to do this stuff. Now I get to pick one of my 2 domains. Let's do it in by that. We're going to use an existing one, no. So if you had an existing one, it'll show you the list of them. You can pull that straight in. Let's call this DevOps by that, right? So we'll put it in there. And we're going to run this on the EAP server. And we can do, because I have the bronze level, I'm not allowed to use small, medium, or large. This just has to do with how much memory is going to be available. I don't think I need anything more than a small. You guys are not going to pound it to death. And you see all the cartridge extras are added in here, so you can add things like cron jobs, Jenkins, whatever you want to do depending upon what your application is going to do. And we're going to create a new one, create a server, and what's he saying? Project name already exists. Oh, let's rename that then. DevOps 2. Now he's happy. So we don't want to use it there. We're going to put it in. Now he's happy. So I put it in someplace on our local machine, and away it goes. So he's doing, this is your first create an application thing right here we're setting up. And this one will actually check it out and put it locally on my file system when he's done. While we're doing that, we can go over here to the command line. Where to my directory where all the apps are at. Okay. RHC app create type jBoss EAP6, I believe. And if you're not sure what it is, watch. Just do help. That's not a very good one. Let's see what types are available. It's not showing me the type, or did I miss it? We'll just give it a go and it'll figure it out. Devox 3. Type, what should we call it? jBoss EAP6. And if you misspell anything, it's pretty smart to pop up and say, oh, there he goes, this is going to work. So here you see the command line. So what's happening behind the IDE is exactly this. You're just not being shown the log the whole time. And here you get to see everything happening. So it's basically going to tell you what's going on. So we go back here and it says, can't be established. You sure you want to continue? So it's an SSH question. Yeah, that's fine with me. Now he's doing some Maven downloading, of course. And over here he's doing that. And we'll go over here to the, let's do an EAP6 here. We'll call this one Devox. What are we at, 4 now? Put this one in by the. You see there you have the options to use whatever's available here. I'll put it in the, keep it closer. Gear sizes I can pick, scaling or no scaling. And you see that's just web traffic. And here you see the ability to put it here or here. I really don't care. I let him pick. It doesn't matter to me. You will find that some of these things are not available here. Let's see if this one is. It may not be available. But generally speaking, the stuff running in America gets put in the East Coast data center, and that runs really well until sometime in the evening time here, and then they all wake up and get really active over there, and it could go a little slower. Yeah, see, this you might get. They've just opened up the European hosting, and not all the cartridges are supported. So we'll just fix that and say, we don't care where you put it. So it's going to end up on the East Coast, and he'll create that one. Same question here, you see. He wants to add it to my SSH stuff. And there you go. It's now available. And even gives you a hint there at the bottom. Show. And you'll notice there's lots of different ways to do things. There's a little bit of legacy in the command line stuff where they started making it one way and then they've come up with new options and things like that. So there you see RHC show app. You also have RHC app show Devox 3. I've always been doing it that way. And there you see here that we have the actual URL to get to it. We have the domain that's in there, when it was created. It's a small gear. And I can even SSH into this stuff, should you so desire. Now be aware, this is based on a Git repository locally, so every time you push, by default it's going to restart the server, reconfigure it, and reset up your stuff and push your code and rebuild it basically. If you go in there and start playing with the configuration at SSH level, how many guys like to do that? Who loves to SSH into machines and hack around and change configurations? And there's always one. I always had one on my team anyway. But just be aware that it's probably going to be written over, right? It's going to be gone when you try to restart it again. So the best way to work from is to change directory into, and it's the name of your app, Devox 3. And what you're looking at here, because we're talking about a Java project, is we have a source directory and we have a POM XML, so the XML file from Maven, so it knows to look in the source directory, build all this, and the only change inside there is when he pushes it, he's going to push the WAR file, the EAR file, whatever your project is, into that deployments directory there. So it's exposing the server's deployment directory for you right there. So for example, if I decide I want to take some kind of WAR that exists already, I can just throw it straight into the deployments directory and push it. Right? So, see what happened back over here. Here we go. Same thing happened here. So you see here let me close this down. Here's the Devox 2. and it's just a basic application. If we look in our service directory, we now have DevOps 2 on OpenShift. So anything I do over here and push is going to automatically push through this out to the server and be available online, which you can view here, I believe. No, where's the browser? There. So we should be able to view DevOps 2. Now, does anybody remember if we did that on in the cloud or by the RH cloud? Nope, not that one. Was it pushing still? Yeah, see, it's building. Now, because we're dealing with a Java server, the first time it runs, it's going to do a complete Maven pull of everything he needs in the server to get everything running. So that takes just a little bit of time. You notice how the log is immediately, that's happening out there on the server, is now immediately pumped into your console. So we can do that on the command line also. RHC tail. RHC tail. DevOps 2. That was 2, right? Yeah. And this one is now, oh, that's because it's a different domain. Name, I think. No. How do I pick a domain? Namespace. There we go. Min by the, or by, yeah, by the. So I have a configuration file set up by default, just does in the. So there you see he just pulled the server log directly into my console. So for the people that are really keen on doing stuff like that, instead of SSHing into the server, you can do that kind of stuff. Now you see it started. So we'll go back over here, take a look. It should start up. There you go. Welcome to your thing. So here you see the one we created here. We can continue on into the page. This is the overview I was talking about. There's the cartridges you can go to. We can delete it if we want to. We can restart the application. Be aware, if you don't touch your server for quite a while, if you kick back and go on vacation for 3 months or something and come back, these are all going to be idle. You'll see idle standing here. So you try to go to the page, that kickstarts it, and it'll start rebooting the thing and resetting it all. But that takes quite a bit. So it's a good idea if you're going to start using stuff to restart it here and get a clean setup. And all you got to do is hit this, and you go straight to it. You see the exact same thing. Now we're at DevOps 4 in the cloud. And the only thing we're missing here in this case is we don't have it locally. So we can do that by copying this here. Go to our command line. And now we're pulling that down into the, he's got to make sure he likes my key. Now we have that, DevOps 4. If we go down into the source, into the web app, there should be an index page. And it's all this silly stuff here. And let's see if we can find something handy to change. EP. JBoss EP, there you go. Whoops. Welcome to. Oop. So we're going to change part of our code. It doesn't really matter what it is. And if I do a status, I can see that it needs to be updated, right? He's figured out that I'm working on something. And just push it. So it's a normal development cycle, right? If you're doing this in IDE, it's right-click, update, commit, push, whatever you're doing, and it'll do the exact same thing in the background. If you look closely, it looks an awful lot like this is the first time I've done something on this server, so you're going to see the actual downloads of all the Maven stuff. But what we're looking at here now is a Java app server, so nothing you shouldn't recognize if you've done any of this kind of stuff. Now, I asked about Ruby, I asked about PHP, but you guys do know what Java is, right? Just checking if anybody's awake out there. So I tried to reload this, and basically it's been taken down, right? That's why it's not working yet. So we need to wait until it gets back up. Here you go, we start in the cartridge. Cartridge being a gear with EAP on it, with our application platform. Seems to be ready to go. There you go. It's all kind of clear. So now you've seen it in the web, you've seen it on the command line, you've seen it in the IDE without a lot of hassle. So that's where we're at there. So we basically push it. If you've installed nothing, you're going to get, or one of the application servers from the community, you get a front page like that. If you do some of the xPaaS stuff, they provide links to jump right to the tooling itself, so you don't have to worry about that. So let's finish up and show how to do something interesting with this besides just starting up a server, because the server's kind of bald and it just has an index page and there's nothing really in there, right? Now, this is a quick start. This is the form of a quick start. This is an extended form. So I show you step by step how to do this stuff. You have to think about it like, okay, I've spun up my instance over there. I now have a link to my GitHub repository, or my Git repository here locally. When I push, it goes to my instance, right? But now I have over here all this example code I want to use. So I have to add that Git information to my project, which is the third line right there. So I'm adding that remote repository, and I'm saying pull all the changes in and override everything. And when I push, it pushes them back up over there. Okay? That's what's going to happen. So I have a complete mobile application set up over there. I'm going to bring it back over here. And all this is here for a reason. So first thing we can do, we basically already set one up. We'll just take one of our DevOps ones. And let's go back to the command line one here. Make sure you're in the directory. So I'm adding the upstream example. I'm going to pull everything in. You might want to think about that before you do that with some 150 megabyte or gigabyte example you have out there when you're on your slow internet. And you see here that he's already going to merge it in. I do my best to keep these things up to date so there's no conflicts. If there's conflicts, you're going to have to deal with whatever it's not happy with. But this one seemed to go pretty good. You see there's 12 commits to be pushed. Let's do that. So now our mobile application is going out there somewhere in the cloud. We're in DevOps 4, so we should be down until it gets done. And here you see he's actually building the source code locally, right? So he pushed it up there, he's building it on the server and deploying a clean WAR for this web archive. And you kickstart the cartridge. Now there's ways to tune this so it doesn't do this every single time, because imagine if you have 5 web applications out there, you don't want rebuilding every single thing when you just make one small change to one web archive. There are settings in a configuration file that you can adjust some of this stuff, so it won't do that every time. I'll refer you to the documentation, because we could spend 5 days going through this stuff if you want to see all the changes. So there you go. We went from an empty server now to running an app, and if you want to see the mobile version of this, we can kick that up here, I believe. Use a simulator. Whatever. He just pulled in the same one. I'm going to do the 4 we just did. Oh, not by that. That needs to be in the... You see here he's now turned that into a mobile application where we can see the list of people that have subscribed to it. We can add somebody. Bob. We can register. You see somebody's been added. And we go back to the web page. So a very simple application. Should see this down at the bottom here, yeah. So anything not clear? So Mr. Windows guy, you got it installed? Did everybody hear that big sigh? I could redo it for you. I know I'm going a bit quick for you maybe, but that's why you have the stuff over here on the side. Are you struggling with the Ruby and the Git stuff, or? Okay. Okay, yeah, there you go. He's having trouble with everything. So my suggestion is go outside and throw that as far as you can, that laptop. Tell your boss you need a new one. No, I'm just kidding. I'll admit, I get a lot of times I'm doing workshops on this stuff, and people will come in, and I have some cheat sheets for you. I can skip ahead to give you something to play with if you want to. Let me jump over here quick. This is a bit of a deviation, bear with me. It's not for everything, but if you want to go over here, you can go play with that one. It's a BPM PaaS 1 in the Red Hat Cloud. I set these up for the workshop so people can play with them. This is a BPM PaaS. The password's Eric S and BPM Suite, all one word, little letters. And you can go log into this and you can play with one of our BPM PaaS things for a bit. I do this because Windows machines sometimes have, like, number one, they're not allowed to install anything on them from the boss, or they have all these ports shut off and stuff like that. It gets really, really painful to do stuff. So Cloud's a good way to set this stuff up because all you need is a browser to do that. Yeah? So you can at least play with something right now. So, are there any questions around this so far? That clear? That good? Excellent stuff. Okay. So you see some of the stuff here on the right side. There's some instructions you can find. I can show you those quick about installing the command line tooling. So the Windows guy, did you find these? Gives you pretty much a straight through thing how to do that. Developers at OpenShift.com getting started. The harder part is probably finding something that's allowed to be installed on there right now. But you'll see a lot of links here on the side. It talks about the Developer Studio stuff. So if we go back over to the Developer Studio, we can do, get rid of this, quit the simulator. So if we look down here in the web app, where is it? Source. Don't know where it's done with this thing. Web app. This is the same idea we were doing before. All we got to do is find out where the title is. We can play with that too. Save it. Team. Commit it. Put it through our IDE. Now it's committed locally. You see that it wants to push them. Let's go push them. Where'd it go? Where did my team stuff go? Push, 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 push. No. I should have pushed it right away, I guess, huh? Just lost my push. No, anyway, supposed to be able to push this. So, republishing the DevOps stuff. Same idea. Well, for some reason I've lost my push. Now let's just modify it again. We'll do it all in one go. Put a space in there. Well, let me push it. Oh, there it is. Push the wrong one. Come in, push. We should see it restart it. So over here he's pushing. So what's happening behind the scenes is what we saw on the command line. He's now going to be committing the code locally, pushing it, and when he pushes it, it's going to start kicking off a restart of the server. He should detect that and show us that. And it's going to basically republish this this application here. So he's pushing to the remote repository is what you see. But for the developer, you're going to see, yeah, I'm all good with that. Go ahead. I'm always happy to see server tabs and things that I'm used to working with. And it's republished. So you should see that on Devox 2. Devox. Oh wait, we had that in our IDE. We're more than happy just to stay in our IDE, right? There you go. Same story. With a space in the end. Okay. So that's what it should look like. And then the mobile stuff here. So this is the first half of the talk, right? Very easy to do this kind of stuff. Do you agree? Seems easy anyway. Maybe not everybody that has Windows thinks it's easy, but promise it's really easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break now. This is the middle of the talk. I'm flexible. I can spend as much time as you want on the second half. We can do this for 15 minutes. We can do a half-hour break. I don't know how bad you got to pee or whatever's going on. Let's take a vote. Who wants to do 15 minutes? Who wants to do half hour? Who wants to do an hour? Okay, 15 minutes then. We'll be back here at, say, 2:45. Deal? Hello, we're back. I just did an impromptu help desk here. They're clapping. Okay, a quick recap. So we took a tour. I explained what the deal was, the infrastructure as a service, the PaaS, the xPaaS, the SaaS, where we're going with this. We installed some tooling, or at least some of us did. Is the Windows guy still here? Yeah, he's still here. Hey, kudos, man. You hang out the whole time, you get one of the shirts for putting up for all my jokes. Eh? So now what we're going to do is, and so we took the first app into the cloud, right? And we did it, maybe it was a little confusing because I did it in 3 different places, but I want to show you all the different ways to do it. The rest of the stuff moving forward, I'm going to do one in one way, one in another way. Really quickly, I'm going to let you see the expedited way of doing what we just did. And you'll find that one. So putting that mobile app in the cloud, you can do that with all those steps I showed you, because I wanted to show you all the baby steps of how to do it from the command line. But the actual project is hosted here, and you can see here we have a one-liner. And the key word there is the from code. So when you have a repository there, you can use the from code, point to a Git repository, and he'll automatically take care of all that for you, right? When you're in the client tooling, go back to the OpenShift stuff here. Wait a minute, just go over here. Get a bunch of tabs open. So if we're going to do it in the web interface here, you add an application. I don't have enough free gear, so I got to start deleting stuff. See, let me go back and delete one. See how that works. It's not very exciting. Sure you want to delete it? Yep, go ahead. Now, you don't have to wait for this to complete. He's now shot off the command, so we can go back and start messing around and deleting the other stuff here. So Devox 3 I don't want no more either. Let's go delete that one too. Now we can go down. You see that one's already gone. Doesn't take very long to delete stuff. So if I wanted to go and create what we just saw in the command line as one go, I can add that URL right here. So this is a window to show you where to point to the source code. This could even be internal to your organization or whatever it is. Whatever app you're working on, if you have them somewhere on Git, you can even point to a specific branch or tag, and he'll pull that in on top of the cartridge that you're choosing. So, kind of a handy tip to know. Okay, now we're going to take it to the next level. They're going to start showing you some examples and dealing with the different cartridges that are available at the PaaS level. So this has to do with just dealing with the platform, doing something on a platform. What's that look like? And we're going to cover some of them, not all of them, as you can see. I think we're going to do PHP. We're going to do some Ruby stuff and some Java stuff mostly. And then after that, we're going to go into the xPaaS stuff. So in PHP, we have some options. We're going to stick with the 5.4. I'm not so much interested in the Zen server and all that kind of stuff. Feel free to explore that on your own. A really good example is what we have hosted here. I can show you this one. It's nothing different than what I got hosted for my current mastering the xPaaS. This is a real JS setup, so it's just like the presentation you're watching. It's running on it just needs a web server, right? It's HTTP, so how could we do that? And the link here is going to point you straight to that actual installation of it, so you can go look at it. But here again, you see this is a single one-liner to spin this thing up. And what this one does is take you to a GitHub where we can look at, go back and get that. So this is like pre-canning something for somebody to set this up locally for themselves, right? So we're going to spin up an application, put all the presentation materials on there, and it's just ready to go, right? So let's try that from here. Try just a PHP app. So it doesn't matter what the presentation is, and then we need to put that repo right here. So the from code section, we're going to put this into here. Now small gear, this is a candidate for scaling, so you could scale this one up and say, hey, I want to scale it with web traffic. Be aware if somebody starts pounding this though, there go all your gears. You'll just start throwing gears at it until you're done, right? So you should survive some of this stuff. I don't care where they spin it up, and away we go. And we're waiting for OpenShift. So this will take a little bit. And so if we were going to do this in the command line, it would look just like this one. You just cut and paste this. Takes all the heavy lifting out of this for you, right? That's what you do. So that's just app create, and I should probably scroll this up. It's a little bit better to see, right? So we want to create the workshop, give it a name, the type is PHP, and then we're pulling in all that code from my repository down over the top of it. And there you go. Now if I want to see what that looks like, remember we can clone this. DevOps 4. See how fast you get a lot of stuff going on here, right? This one isn't too heavy. My Preso. So what do we have? We have a PHP directory. Here you see all the HTML stuff. So it's going to hit the index HTML when we start this up. Let's continue on to the application overview. Hit it, and there you go. Presentation, right? No big deal. I actually have the exact same one for the mastering the xPaaS set up for you. So you can do that one too if you like. So you can take this home and not have to worry about me taking my instance down. Right here. So it's a one-liner right there. The to-do doesn't need to be cut and pasted there. It's ready to go. Okay? So I'll take that out right after this thing, okay? So that I'll leave online. So you can pull this presentation down anytime you want and use it as homework or whatever to follow along. Any questions about that? It's not that hard. Who just did that? All right. See, there's actually people starting to get involved here. Excellent stuff. Those are pretty much the simple, straightforward web server ones. That's not very exciting, right? So we have a Ruby. Ruby is available to us, which can be a little bit more complicated if you want it. I have another presentation that's based on some markup stuff that's called Awestruct. It's one of the things that's used in the community of JBoss to generate some of the documentation. So this is a set of presentations that I have online. And this whole site is generated. So you can go look at the dev day that was in London. You can see he's a little bit slow there. So some of the images you might recognize. So this is apparently coming from far away. It's not very quick, but you get the idea. So the whole thing being that this is a generated site, right? There's a whole collection of stuff I did in 2013 or whatever. So same idea, we can do this in different steps, or you can do this as a one-liner, or you can spin this up as Ruby in the cloud. What do you want to do? Let's take a vote. Who wants to do it in the web tooling? Who wants to do it on the command line? Y'all are developers, right? Awesome. If I can't watch it, it's no fun. I don't trust anybody that writes a web interface, right? Fair enough. So let's throw away our stuff we're creating here, right? Otherwise, we just get a bunch of garbage. And you should get a feeling already, okay, now you're starting to do your work at work somewhere, right? And you've got your app going and whatever, and you put it in some Git repository, it's in some condition that you think, hey, this is usable. So then you'll start throwing this at people and say, hey, spin up a cartridge over there, and then pull my repo in. Here's the URL to do that, and away you go, right? The whole idea being that you can get started really quickly with this stuff. And if you break it, or you're playing around and trying to push some stuff and you start breaking things, you just throw the whole damn thing away and spin it up again. It's way quicker than trying to fix what you just borked on your server. So we won't wait for that to delete. We'll go ahead and kick off our Ruby one. There, he's deleted that. So what you have here is he's using Ruby to generate out of markup, so HAML, if that says anything to you, HAML files, and he's generating the HTML from that, which gives you the ability with some configuration to say, okay, for production I want one configuration done, for another site I want this configuration done. You can manage that in a configuration file without changing the actual source files. So he'll generate proper URLs for whatever site you're pushing to, whether you're playing locally or remotely. It's kind of fun. Does it start to feel repetitive, like you're seeing the exact same thing happening, it's just that we're changing the cartridge name? If that's what's happening, then I finally achieved my goal. You know, platform as a service should be boring. It should be absolutely boring. We don't care how it happens underneath there, just spin the crap up and make it work, right? You promised me Ruby, you promised me PHP, you promised me JBoss, I want JBoss. I don't want stuff that half works, right? It's good that we have no operations guys in here. They'll be waiting out in the parking lot for me after the talk. They tend to get a little upset with this stuff. It also feels like it's getting a little bit slower, but if we look at the time, we're now talking about 3 o'clock. What time is it on the East Coast? It's 9 o'clock. I guess they're showing up at work, so things might get a little slower. Be aware of that. I didn't think about it, but with the command line you can also, I'm pretty sure, select. I don't know if you can do that. I don't think you can select. I think you have to use the web interface to select where you want to host the stuff. So in the case of trying to push this stuff over to the, where's all the OpenShift? So if I wanted to create a Ruby thing here a bit ago, say Ruby 2.0. And down here you have a choice of this stuff. You don't have that choice with the command line as far as I can tell. There you go. It's created. Wait for DNS to be available. Kind of an interesting story behind the DNS stuff. Way back in the beginning when they first started doing this, all of a sudden all over the forums and the IRC you had Chinese people popping up, at least people with Chinese names, right? And they were saying it doesn't work and I can't get DNS to work. Oh, why do you think? You're in China, because they basically block all that kind of stuff there. So it was really, you can expect some interesting reactions if you get into countries, or if you happen to get jobs into countries that can mess with how the web traffic works. It's not very quick now. You see that? Big difference in the speed we did before the break. Now, if you're working on something like this and you're using the enterprise version, what will happen is you'll set up a server somewhere with the enterprise setup, and you can modify your configuration to use that. And while we're waiting for this to do this, I'm going to show you. In your home directory, you have an OpenShift directory now with an express conf in it. And there's not a whole lot in it by default, but one of them is this. This is pointing to the community out there, to the OpenShift online, the public cloud. You can change this here to point to whatever server you want. So if you set up a private cloud somewhere on your laptop or somewhere on another laptop in your network or on a server in your network, you can point that to that, and all your commands will go through that because you've adjusted it in your configuration. Same thing here for, you see I have 2 users. If you can see so I have 2 users in here. So if you want to do something like that and I want to work with the other user for a while, I want to have to keep adding, that would require me to do this. Domain show. So you have to add a username every time to look at what that user does. If I'm doing a lot of work on one username, then I'll just flip it in my configuration file. And there's some other stuff in here that is interesting to work with, but you have to look up the documentation on that. So, for example, if we go into one of our projects, there's also a OpenShift directory, a .OpenShift directory. So it's invisible if you're not aware of it there. You can look at the action hooks. There's the build deploy. These are just init scripts, basically. These are different phases of how they deploy. So if you have to do something special here, so for example, I have way back when we were having kids like 10 years ago, we wanted to do a baby game. So I wanted a MySQL database, I had a PHP front end, and it was just a simple web thing so you could vote for the name and try and gamble, what day they're going to be born and whether it's going to be a boy or a girl or something like that. The thing was, when I put it on as a demo, you got all kinds of people around the world that are a bit weird, and they start putting really nasty stuff in there, right? So every time I restarted it, I wanted to clean out the database just by default. So in this build script, you can say, hey, reinitialize all the tables, things like that. Anything you want to do in here, you can program into this. There's a lot of examples out there. The deploy thing is empty. You can do what you want. There's really not anything in any of these. So just whatever you want to do with these hooks. And some of the demos require stuff like that. I think that if you look at the WordPress one, there's quite a bit of action going on in here to set up the stuff that's going on with WordPress out of the box. What else we have in here? If you go into the configuration directory, as a JBoss person or a Java person, you'll recognize here the standalone XML is from the server. So that's your whole server configuration. You manage that locally. You push that. And when you push it, it gets copied into and set up into the server. So like I said, if you SSH into your server and do that stuff, you're going to have some problems when you come back around. Right? You have cron jobs you can do, markers. So markers is another way of dealing with the configuration, and there's some interesting ones in there. So for example, if I set, just put a file in there, doesn't matter what's in it, just an empty file that says skip Maven build, he will not rebuild the server's Maven thing every single time. Force a clean build can be set to do it every single time or just to do less stuff. There's a lot of different stuff you can do in the markers. It's in the documentation in there. One of the things you don't want to have it do is build all the WAR files if they don't need to be built. That's a big pain in the butt. If you got like 10 of them, you could be waiting a while, as we are now, just for one, right? It's still taking time. So this is not a good sign for us here. But he looks like he created it already. Let's cheat and go take a look over here. What did we call it? Prezos. Yeah, see, it's already created, so it must be up there. He's just having trouble dealing with the server. No, it's not. Ooh. So let's see what happened. Looks good. So, did he clone it? I don't think he did he? So we can clone it just by grabbing this here, which is why you use the show command. See if we got anything. Yep, here it comes. This is a little bit bigger, it looks like. For some reason, nothing's happening there. And while he's doing that, we can do restart Perezos. All right. And then we can do REC tail prezos. See what's happening. What's the log? Oh, seems pretty happy. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Not so much. I don't think we got a clean install with that install. No big deal. You guys have seen it done 5 or 6 times. Did anybody do this and did it work for them? See, you're all doing it now, so we're all just hammering this thing, right? We'll move on to the next one. This is a little bit more intricate setup here. So now you're talking about a cartridge that is involving a whole library that's set up for you. And it's a combination of using the cartridge with local Rails installed on your machine. So what's happening is if you follow this link here, we got a how-to set up inside of this stuff. So if you take Rails 4, it's going to talk about how it happens. And it gets down here a little bit, and it'll start getting into locally you need to do bundle install and things like that. So what you've done is you set up an instance out in the cloud. It's got Rails on it, it's got Ruby on it, and you have a local project set up, so a Git replication of what's out there with your source code. And then now you need to start using your local tools to install an application and create a bundle and all that kind of stuff. So for the Rails guys, they're quite familiar with this. I don't have a lot of that installed on my stuff, so here you're creating just a basic template here, and then when you get to the bottom here, what you're going to have is a post. It's going to recognize posts that you enter into this web page here, right? So they're going to show you how to generate a really basic Rails web application. So all that involves is, let's see, get back to our OpenShift. So not everything's working flawlessly here. So we'll go ahead and dump the prezos thing here. He didn't like us. And I promise you when you do these all later, they all will work. All of them have been tested multiple times or have been running out in the cloud anyway for a while. So there's nothing here that's shaky. And we've got 15 to 16 gears. Man, I'm cranking up way too many gears here. Seems to be the problem. Kill this one too. Give us some room to play. So I saw a bunch of people came up here at the end and had their were showing me their DevOps apps. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those away. Back, throw away and make a little bit more room. And DevOps. And no worries, because if we log out here and log into the other one, see what we got over here. Ooh, there's the baby game. So here you have a couple of BPM PaaS things. The workshops here, this session is on here, and the primer's on here, and the prezos and the workshops. Okay. So we have here 10 gears. Those are also almost full, so we'll go back to the other one, I guess. I don't want to delete any of these. Okay. So you see you have a combination of working command line if you want. You can work in your IDE if you want. You can work online if you want. You can the reporting as far as if anything's broken, that will only happen here on he's not letting me delete stuff. That might be a problem. We'll just do it here. Command line always works, right? So while we make some room, we can look at the Rails one. So let's add an application. See down here in the Rubies, we have the Ruby on Rails. What do you want, 3 or 4? I always like the new stuff, right? So you see here, he's already talking about a quick start. So that means he set it up with, it's not just Ruby, it's also Rails 4. It's also installing the whole Rails library. And how does he do that? Look what he did already. He's pulling this from a Rails 4 example repository. So that's how they're spinning that up for you. And you're going to get Ruby plus MySQL. So we better make sure that this stuff deletes. Or we're going to run out of space. No preference and create the app. Delete another one. Not found. Good. RHC and domain show. See what we got still alive. And he's noticeably slowing down. I don't know if you've kind of caught that as we're talking to keep your attention. It's slowed down quite a bit, so it must be getting busier on the East Coast, which can happen. I don't have this every day. Some days it's flying, some days it isn't. We're still in the PaaS space here, right? We're just dealing with platforms right now. No extra services really on top beyond libraries. Now it's getting to be dramatically slow. This is not a good sign. Well, we might be grinding to a halt here. It generally shouldn't take more than 2 minutes to do anything, even if it's on the East Coast. And I end up working on the East Coast quite a bit too, and if you're down there, it tends to fly almost as fast, if not faster than what I have locally. It's pretty amazing. It's really nice to do demos and workshops over there. I was really hoping, and see, it's communicate. I can't get the DNS. Oh boy. This is not a good sign. And this is part of the deal. I mean, we're working in the cloud. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? You can't really fake that. It doesn't do you any good to watch me do this stuff locally on my machine. So, lucky thing is we've seen most of it happen. So I'll just move on from this. We'll talk about the Java stuff, and I'll show you a little bit of some of the stuff I've done here. This is a web app that we can spin up on JBoss AS7. Can take a look at it and what it does. jBPM. This is a piece of code I wrote quite a while ago, or it's part of our tooling actually. This migrates you from an old version of jBPM 3, I think, 3.2, all the way up to the BPMN 2 spec. So it's an XML transformation and everything you can put into any tool you want. When you come in here, you see the old-fashioned, and I've kept this because I kind of like this. You see it's on the shirts there. I was talking about the logo. This used to be the introductory page, so I give you a link through to the actual web archive that's created. You can see that here, the jBPM migration upload 0.6. What you get is this little web page. You get a link to one you can download as an example. You upload a file, and then he'll process it. He should process it. So let's see if this, wait a minute. I want to save this file to my download directory. Save as, no, not link. Yeah, save link as, I'll just put it in the downloads directory. So there's a process definition we're going to dump in there. And when you upload it, he's going to be busy on the server doing that. And he's going to show you the original and then the XML below it, and you can cut and paste that into any tool that is a designer, and it should, if it supports BPMN 2, should display just fine. So here's a very classic Java web application. It's just the demo thing here, being hosted on that. So where are we at here? So what you see here is we're using AS7, and then the idea behind this would be to show how to move it then, for example, to Wildfly, which is a newer version. This one here, you see that there's a WAR file generated and deployed in the deployments directory. When we're moving to a new one, I took a shortcut for anybody that's a smart cookie around here. All I did was take the WAR file and put it in the deployments directory. So if we go look, and those are the instructions on how to do it, and we don't seem to see the domain show isn't working, nothing's working. So I hope we just have a hiccup in the network or something, but if we're completely down, oh, there it goes. See, it's back. Excellent. So we can get back to work. So did I clean up everything? Looks like it. Okay. Yes. Okay. Seems to be working again. Excellent. So what we'll do is I'll take you through this one. And y'all like the command line, right? So devox. So thing is, I already have one created there just to make sure I had something to show you. So we're going to rename this one number 2. That's more responsive. That's better. So it's going to spin up a good old fashioned. Anybody here using JBoss AS7? Should be. Yeah, it's not that old, right? Cross our fingers. And while we're waiting for that, because I'm sure you all believe that that's going to spin up eventually. Where are we? Better just... so I did a Wildfly one, and it also looks almost exactly the same as far as you can tell, right? Deployments directory. What do we have in the deployments directory? The WAR file. So that's a really good tip for a shortcut on how to get your web apps up there really fast. This is not building it out of the source directory. If you look at the POM file, you'll see that this one is deploying stuff off into the deployments directory here. See? They're at the bottom. So you're going to want to be careful when you copy your stuff over not to delete this. This is what you need to get it to deploy to the right directory. But for the rest, it's basically put everything in the source directory, and it should work just fine as far as a normal Maven project. Okay? So worst case, your upgrades mean just put a WAR file out there, but that's pretty much how you end up deploying your stuff anyway. But if you're looking to build it against the libraries in a new server, then you need to put it in the source directory and run it through there. So it's still deploying, waiting for the DNS, but this is a little bit more the tempo it should be doing. So we should see... there's the output. You see here, this is what I put in, start node in something, and this is all the BPM into that you can cut and paste. Full disclosure, I also send myself an email with what you submitted. So those end up as test cases, and I usually obfuscate any kind of names that might be remotely something to do with the company. But it's a really nice way for me to capture test cases for this software. I've got like 40 or 50 of them already. Okay, let's go check out the 2, see if it's up yet. Look at that. And oh my gosh, it looks exactly the same. So there you go. So this is a web app, spinning it up on the AS7. And then the idea would be to have this stuff migrate over to the... I was going to clone it, I guess, if you didn't time out. This is where we hung up last time, right? Maybe I should pay attention instead of not talking to you guys and don't give it a chance to say yes or no, and you might time out on me behind my back. Looks like it. Okay, so we don't get the Git repository locally, but it's up and running, right? And I really don't care whether I get that, so RHC app delete jBPM migration 2. Yes. And just like that, gone. All right. Where were we? So I was taking a little bit of how to do some kind of application on an app server in the Java space. And now we're going to move into the xPaaS part, which is a little bit more interesting, right? Here we're talking about putting heavier services on top, which is basically like cartridge plus plus is a way to look at that. So Rails is an example of getting in that direction. WordPress is an example of getting in that direction, but Garner doesn't talk about WordPress on a web server, right? Gartner's talking about application servers spinning up stuff. They're talking about mobile platforms being spun up. They're talking about integration platforms being spun up. So that's what we're talking about as far as these things. I have here an APaaS one for you, and this is a business optimizer demo. This is something that you might recognize from the Opta planners. Anybody aware of what this is? Does Jeffrey happen to be in the room? There he is. See, I thought so. There you go, dude. I'm highlighting your stuff. So what we're doing is spinning up an EE6, and again, you notice I changed between certain slides. Some of them are using the from code and making it very simple. I could do that here too. You can also do that, just from code and put this URL in here. But it's to give everybody an idea of what the steps are behind here. So you can do this first step. You can do in the web console, or you can do it command line. You can do it in the IDE and spin it up. Then you can add the code from the repository if you wish. So since we're all really professional at this, right, we can just go over here and do this. And I'm a little hesitant how long this might take, because it's about, I think it's about a 30 meg download, but we'll see what happens. So you see, I'm going to cheat because you guys are all professionals now. Right? And we're just going to jump off the bus. Oh, it already exists, of course. I have one in the background that we can look at while it's doing this. So we'll do the optimizer 2. There you go. So while he's doing that, we'll go over here and look at the optimizer. Whoops. Optimizer in the cloud. So what Jeffrey's done for you is put together a couple of web examples. So he's written a web-based interface here for vehicle routing and cloud balancing. So this is a piece of tooling that allows you to do complicated resource planning, not just like rosters at school or how to do beds in a hospital or I don't know, plan train routes. This can do things like taking a container on a ship and giving you a bunch of boxes. Some of them are round, some of them are triangle, and then optimize the space for how many boxes you can get inside there for how big the container is. Pretty crazy stuff. The cloud balancing one's kind of fun too, because he also takes a data center and takes the loads and then balances them across these servers, using them as minimal amount of servers as he can to save you the most money, right? The vehicle routing is a good visual one. He starts out with a very simple overview. It's taking a little bit. But when this thing kicks off, it's going to show you a bunch of points on a map and trucks that got to go from a distribution center, and they have to drive around and do these deliveries, right? They have to hit all these points. So what's the optimal route as far as how much gas I'm going to spend, gas money? And you'll see him go through cycles of trying it again and again. But we seem to have pissed off the cloud again. It's kind of up and down. Oh, there it is. Okay, so vehicle routing, you can see all these points. There's the distribution center. See that there? Make it a little bit smaller so it won't be really great to see, but it'll come up with, every few seconds, it'll come up with a new solution, and it should show you the map and there's the amount of fuel. If you see the amount of, this is also calculating in the background on the server. So these are not bad nodes that the OpenShift is giving you. These things do pretty well with these loads. And I don't know what the exact optimal number should be, but is he getting close? Is he getting close to an optimal route? I think about 72 or something like that. You see it's getting better and better with the fuel. But anyway, this is kind of a nice one. We can terminate this early. Go to the cloud balancing one. And here you see a bunch of servers. Let me do this a little bigger because it's not so interesting to see all of them. And then you'll start solving it. So it gives it a bunch of loads from a data set, and you'll see it'll start adding processing counts and stuff and starts distributing them across these things. The same idea. And then you see a running dollar amount there at the top of how much money is costing. Also think about this software is going to be probably a pretty large factor in how we do case management. If you come into, the really classical example for that would be when you come into an emergency room, how are you going to deal with this person? You know, what sicknesses does he have? You don't know what, you're managing a case. You don't know what he has, so you describe some tests he has to take. Based on those tests, the doctor will look at, decide maybe he needs surgery. This software comes around the corner at that step in the process to say, hey, we need to now schedule an operating room. We need to schedule a doctor that can do the surgery. We need to match nurses to this, anesthesiologists, all this kind of stuff. That's a pretty complicated planning problem that needs to be dealt with. So that's what this is for. And again, so I'm taking too long. That's just me. See, unable to clone the project because it times out while I'm talking to you guys. I'm not paying attention, which is no big deal because we can do a clone based on this here. Because it gives you the actual code here. Right. And should you lose that and don't know what that is, there's an easy command for that. And this might take a little bit. I'm not sure how big this is, about 30 MB, so I'm not sure how fast this is going to go. It's not really important for us to clone this, right? So if you're unsure of how to get to your app or what the details are around your app or how do I get the SSH out of it, just remember app show. If you can't remember your apps, you do domain show and it lists all your apps. You can go and check it out. Okay. That's an example of looking at the optimizer. So where are we at on gears? Probably should delete that one too. So RHC app delete optimizer 2. If you think back like 6-7 years ago, this is pretty amazing. You're now spinning up app servers like it's nothing. Okay, it's taking a little bit of time because we're not really responsive here in the middle, but this morning we were throwing them up and throwing them down like it's not even funny. Right? Who wants to try and match that on their local laptop by spinning up an EAP server, spinning up a Ruby and Rails environment? That's not a lot of fun. See, now it's working pretty well. Okay. All right, so there's just a very simple, straightforward thing there. We could also mess around with the mobile app a bit, but we don't generally need to do that. I think you guys get the idea of how to change, source files, push them up. It's just a normal development cycle that you're dealing with. Let's look at the mobile one. We have in the xPaaS right now, we have a bit of a movement inside of Red Hat. We just acquired a new company called Feed Henry, which is going to strengthen this space drastically. They have a bunch of cloud tooling and stuff available to design and manage your mobile applications. But one thing they don't really have very well covered is a push server for notifications, and that's in a project we have running called Aerogear. So this is a push server that we have in the cloud that supports Apple push notifications, Google stuff, and Mozilla's. It's basically a cartridge that contains Aerogear and MySQL as the backend to persist all these push notifications that you want to send out. If you follow this here, and I have to cheat a little bit because I'll show you what it looks like and then we can show you how to create it. Well, creating it's not very exciting actually, because this is one of your xPaaS things here. See the push server here? It's even featured. So what you end up with is another push in the cloud. Sometimes they warn you that you need to use medium. I don't believe this one needs to use a medium gear. You see that you get Aerogear and MySQL. There's nothing he's sucking in at all, so it's just a standard installation. No preferences, and go for it. Yoo-hoo. Create that. So while he's baking it, we'll go play with this. Now the standard login is, and you're going to see when we spin it up, it's going to give you an encrypted password. It's a really ugly password, so I did a screenshot on it. And we need to pull up Go back here. Get rid of this junk here. So we need to pull up an image here. Nobody run off and do funky stuff with my admin. Oh yeah, I already changed it. This one's not so bad. Never mind. First time he comes up with a really silly one, and then you gotta, the first thing he asks when you log in is to reset it. So I got a normal one there, that's no big deal. So this here gives you an overview of your push stuff. You can add applications to this. So if you have applications deployed on the server, then you can send push notifications to them by picking one of your applications and sending off a notification. So the idea being you can talk to any mobile device, whether it's a tablet or whatever. So this is a complicated service that's being deployed automatically with very little pain. Gives you the xPaaS experience. So basically all I did was just select, click, point, and then go sit here and wait. Now these are also examples of applications you don't want to get clone these. So if you clone them, they'll be empty. I can show you what it looks like. I cloned my push server already. This is all I got is a README file. And it says go check out the cartridge there. And the cartridge is going to tell you you're not supposed to be putting code in here. You're supposed to be using the app in the cloud, right? This is a deployment needs that something that normally your operations people would be setting up for you. So that's the idea behind that. You'll see the same thing with the BPM PaaS and the same thing with the Fuse stuff. You're using all the integration PaaS in the cloud. You're not dealing with the stuff locally there. So as we cross our fingers and hope that this works. See if it showed up. No, we don't need this one either. Finally got around to deploying my Rails 4. We pretty much moved on. You see in the Rails one was the Ruby and the MySQL stuff. There you go. Come on. Seems like we're not getting a lot of tempo out of this anymore. Again. So I move on to the next one while we wait, and I'll spin back around to this if it pops up any faster. This is a rather fascinating one. Is anybody doing anything here with Camel? Do you like Camel? Most people are pretty fanatical about that. The iPaaS stuff is very much focused on the Fuse product we have, which is the Camel routes, Camel integration, Fuse fabric, all these kind of things should be like common terms in your world. We have a Twitter example here that's preloaded in this. And what I tried to do is, right here you have a link to the actual article that'll show you how to put that together yourself. It'll walk you through with the video also, but step by step how to do this. I've kind of convoluted it down into a couple of simple steps with a screenshot of what it should look like when you can put anything you want in there as your own login. But what you're going to do is we're going to spin up an iPaaS integration one with the Fuse cartridge. And what you're going to get is a login, an admin, and a password. And you're going to create a new container, and the container is going to look like that on the right side there. So you see that it's called My Twitter. In this case, we're doing a Twitter thing. The broker we're using the community stuff online, so the OpenShift Online. So that's where you're going to want to point it for. You'll notice that's also the same thing that was in your Express configuration, that configuration file I showed you. And you need to put your login for whatever you're dealing with OpenShift with. Now, in my case, it's the eChabelle one. And you can test it by logging into OpenShift with that button to make sure it works. And then you got to pick a domain and a gear profile and the number of containers. And then you'll see him in your OpenShift Online. He'll spin up containers, right? So, for example, it's the Fuse one here, and he spun up a second one out there. So he's made a new container for me. It's all managed through this one. And this one does have a very ugly login. So it's admin, and then I got to look it up because it's funky. Desktop. So I'll get this over here, somewhere where I can see it. Oop. Okay. So that's a generated password. And you see, come in here and we have a runtime. And when you come in, your runtime will be empty and you'll have to create a new container. And you'll do this. And you'll add your container information in just like there. Now he's added in my login and stuff because I put it in one time already. So I'm not interested in actually creating this. I have my Twitter done already. And I attach it to a Twitter profile. When you open that up, and we go look at the camel stuff, we'll see that there's a route in here, and Twitter demo. And he's basically going bananas because right now he's sucking in from a Twitter feed anything that's mentioning DevOps. So remember that feed we had over here? That feed was, every time it clicks, this thing is pulling one of those in. And you can adjust that any way you want to do this live by going back over here to the container, I believe. Profiles, sorry. Go down here to the camel Twitter thing, and you have a configuration file that you can edit, and right here, see if this is easier to read. There you go. So you can go to the keyword and make this whatever you want. So we could make this, for example, we got to edit it first. Shall we just make it camel? Do people say camel on Twitter very much, you think? I think so. So you save that. You can go back and watch this thing redeploy. So I'll shrink that back down that it fits a little bit. Yeah, you see, there's not as many people talking about camel as there are about DevOps, apparently. And if we wait a bit, now it goes to 18. So if you guys start twittering something right now, you can watch this climb. So that's kind of an interesting one to set up there with the Java integration one, right? So I put the slides in here with the actual steps, step by step on how to do that, so you don't have to go dig it up. And then going in there and changing the configuration to do either camel or do it for, in this case we went from, I think camel is out of the box, and I think I went to DevOps just for fun, because I figured we'd get more hits out of that. So where does that one look like here if you want to put the iFuse together? That's this one right here. You'll also find it under the xPaaS here. And it's recommended that this is a medium-sized gear, so you kind of want to watch that when you start getting into these higher-level services. Some of these have bigger loads or bigger reasons or reasons that we need to have bigger gears. I have a business rules management system one that actually starts something in the background that watches for rule changes in your rule project so that the web application can dynamically update and get the new rules as soon as they're deployed. That requires a separate thread, and the way they've set up OpenShift Online, if you have a local install, you can configure this any way you want, but the way they've set up online is to not allow any threads beyond until you get to a large gear. So if you do a small or a medium gear, you'll get absolutely no reaction whatsoever from changing the rules, but if you do a large one, all of a sudden he has the ability to start a cron thread and away he goes, and he's happy. It's nice to know, before you start messing around. So if you, in the case of the people that have configured their own setup today or logged in, you need to have a medium gear here for this at the very least, and that's done by this, right? Also something you noticed here, this is a manifest, right? What's a manifest? This cartridge is pointing at a setup somewhere. if we click on that, this is a file down here in the OpenShift cartridge. It's not going to let us see it, is it? That's okay. They've blocked it off. But what a manifest file does is basically tell them what kind of, this is how you make a cartridge, right? This is the definitions file for a cartridge. And you see he's pointing to a source URL from some GitHub archive someplace to pull all this stuff down and to install Fuse for you pre-configured. And it includes some Twitter stuff and getting started stuff and links and stuff he's going to do. So in a bit, before we finish up, I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I have where I've taken the business rules management system and I've created a custom setup that allows you to cut and paste this manifest URL in here without using one of the standard setups, and it automatically copies in demo code for you so you can get started really quickly. So I've completely finished projects that are already pre-deployed and you don't even have to mess with the stuff. Okay, if you spin this up, but since everything is like drastically slow, I'm going to go ahead and not spin this one up. Since we've already played with it here. Still clicking along. It's not really moving that fast, so I guess Devox is much more active today than Camel is. Any questions around that one? There's even a workshop behind this. This workshop is attached to a combination of working with Fuse and rules at the same time, so deploying a rules engine inside of the OSGI containers and things like that. It's not completely talking about working on OpenShift only, but it's possible to do this with your OpenShift cartridge, to use parts of this. We've been doing a tour around the world to train some of our internal people on this, and this is kind of a fun thing to go look at. She's posted it online. She's a really smart lady. She knows what she's doing with this stuff. So I put that in here, and if you hover on this and click on this, it'll take you off to the link where you can follow the labs and do the slides. Okay? So not only did I give you a bunch of homework to take home, now you got even more to do. So remember that when you're deciding whether to click on the green or the red outside, right? With your little badges here. Another part of the iPaaS that most people aren't aware of is data virtualization, so data integration, not just integration with all your different backend and different components, but also with the data that you're dealing with. So imagine you have a company that merges and you have a bunch of data sources that contain customer information. How do I supply to you as a developer a very clear view of the customer? I might need to pick some table rows out of this one, some stuff out of SAP, and some stuff out of a flat file, right? And this tool allows you to put a virtualized database on top of that and just design your tables against those three different data sources without having to deal with them. So you just deal with a single query on a single table that you set up as you develop your project. I'm not going to spin this one up. This one is very much a developer-oriented demo. If you want to play with this, I do put the link to the workshop and to the actual article here. So if you click on these, it'll take you to the quick start to spinning it up. As far as doing that over here, you can find it under right here. So this is a data virtualization one. This one does not, I believe, require a medium gear, so you could play with this one. But you do need to look at the quick start link that's in here, and it'll talk about how to take your JBoss Developer Studio, connect it to the OpenShift instance that you're going to spin up there, and it includes some example databases in it, or data sources, I should be saying, and shows you how to port forward those database connections to your IDE. So now you're using inside of the Eclipse IDE the normal data tab to deal with your data sources. So it's a pretty good thing to work through, but it's a bit much to be bouncing around here on. So go ahead and take a look at that. So you see the installation stuff. You're going to get some of these users. This is a green box that pops up when you create one of these things. It gives you all these generated user codes. So you need to remember to take a picture of those. And they're pretty good about pointing you to all the different directions and instructions around it. And you see here what you're going to do is you're going to go into the servers tab and you're going to set up an EAP6 one or whatever it is and point it to the OpenShift installation. It shows you how to do this step by step. And it's a managed external servers, basically what you're doing inside your IDE. And you'll end up with the OpenShift instance that he recognizes as far as I'm dealing with these data sources. Then you're going to go in here and use the IDE tooling to port forward this stuff. So we're saying, please send all the data ports open so I can deal with them here locally, allowed to connect remotely to them. That'll be one of the things you'll run into probably the most when you're dealing with these things in the cloud. OpenShift Online tends to close almost all the ports. There's very few open, just the user space. So when you have tooling that requires something specific down at a lower level, you're going to have to find out what's possible to port forward and what isn't. Not everything is. So that can get a little bit frustrating when you're developing stuff. So you see here that they've forwarded the ports. And when you do that, you can now connect with the actual tooling from the data virtualization stuff and start building your application against these data sources. So it gives you an idea how that stuff works. And then we get down to the really good stuff, right? This is my favorite stuff. The BPM PaaS. We're expecting, there's two elements involved here. There's the Business Rules Management System and the Business Process Management Suite. Within our company, that has to do with a subset. So BRMS is rules and events only. And the BPM suite involves all of BRMS, so rules, events, and also processes, right? So the first one we're going to look at here is called the Cool Store. And you'll notice that there's a Business Rules Management System cartridge. So if you go take a look over here, you can actually spin that one up. But we don't want to do that. We're going to do this a little bit differently. But I'll show you what it looks like. Because you don't want to deal with pulling my code over and all that kind of stuff. So here's the Business Process Management Suite, but you also have the Business Process Management Suite. Ooh. Okay, we're just going with Business Process Management Suite for everything. They've changed that. Because it's the superset of everything, you're going to get all the rules possibilities with that too. So it's the same idea. So if you click on this, that's what you end up with the whole shebang. And it's definitely a medium-sized gear. You're better off going large. Because if you're trying to do things like I just described, where you're going to set up it's called a key scanner to watch the rules. If you're going to do that, then you need to do the large gear. If we go over here, and I've put links in for this stuff for you guys, there's a whole list of these. So anything with a cartridge on the front, BPM PaaS, you see a rewards, a customer evaluation, generic. These two here, BPM PaaS and BRMS PaaS, are just empty installations of these things. Let's take a look at those. So here's the BRMS one. And if you look down here as a summary of what this is, and the most important part is how do I deploy it, you're going to see that manifest URL here, which is part of this cartridge definition. Now in this cartridge definition, in the metadata, you're going to find the manifest. That's what's going to be inside of there. So if you go look at that, that's describing what everything is inside this cartridge. You'll notice the 6.02 under versions. That's the complete BRMS code base that I'm going to install, right? That you normally would install on a local server. I've put it there. So when I send him this manifest file, I'm telling him in there is what you need to copy, right? The other interesting part is the bin directory. And I believe it's the install. Yeah. So all the magic happens right here. This is a script file. He's basically looking in the versions under the 6.2 and he's copying stuff over, right? Special standalone setups, special settings and things like that. And you're also going to see at a certain point in time when I'm doing an actual demo pre-install, it's going to copy that demo over into the right direction. So when you kickstart, it's all going to be there when you get there. This one's empty. So this is just a clean install without having to do anything. So I don't care what OpenShift does with their cartridges, and like they just now decided not to do BRMS anymore, they're just doing the BPM suite. You can use this manifest file in this project and you'll have BRMS. So if we go back up to the top, cut and paste that, and I'll show you how you can install one of these. It also tells you how to do it here. So you can do this in the UI or you can do this at the command line and give it an app name and point it at this cartridge thing. You see way at the end he's pointing it right at the manifest file. So instead of pointing at the whole Git repository, I'm saying pick up this manifest file and this is what you're going to want to use. And you'll notice he's not saying from code here at the beginning. So this is not a code-based thing. This is a app create, medium gear, blah, blah, blah. So let's go over here and try that. Problem is, where do I put the manifest file, right? Go way down here to the bottom. This is where all the sneaky stuff happens, right? This is called code anything. So you see a do-it-yourself cartridge there. You see a cartridge development kit there. Do-it-yourself is pretty much an empty cartridge, and you can put anything you want in there. So for example, if you have, I don't know, Ruby 5.4 that you're working on somewhere in the community, and it's way beyond anything that we have deployed, you can put this stuff on there and try it and test it and sort out a cartridge that way. We're looking over here at this, this empty window. You put your manifest file in there, you say go. Call it 10 because I'm not sure if I have one already. Go ahead and call it a medium gear because that's the least of what I need, and then create it. And this will take a little bit longer because you're talking about a large install, so we're going to have to come back to this. This is going to be like about probably at least 3 minutes or so. What you're going to get is, let's get rid of some of this stuff. I finally figured out what that noise is. Are you guys hearing that noise too? It's the counter here. Nobody explained this to me ahead of time. So this is already done, but it's definitely not going to be ready for us yet. So we'll go back and pick out one right here. So this was created the exact same way. And this includes an actual app already pre-installed in it. So I have a project called the BRMS Cool Store, and it's got an OpenShift version that includes one of these manifest files. So once you've spun it up, you'll see here that we're dealing with some project. And this is back to the xPaaS link. Huh? We're talking about BPM PaaS. So this is rules, events, and processes in the cloud, right? You have a very high level services beyond your normal container services. You have in here a rule flow. We have in here technical rules. We have in here decision tables. We have all the stuff you normally would deal with along the lines of running an app, right? So putting together the different rules. There's tests, all kinds of stuff. And then we have a deployed web app in that same instance. And this is our store. It's an online shop. And the whole idea being that every time I click on here and add something to the cart, he's going to go look up the shipping price on that table you just saw. He's going to apply rules and see if there's any promotions that need to be added to this. When we get to the point of, I think, 75, the shipping should disappear like around $75 or something like that, I think is the level. You get free shipping. Yeah, there it goes. Now promotions are starting to be applied too. And you can rerun this. And the whole idea being go in there, change some rules, and show people that it all is dynamically updating. So you have an actual online web shop here that's being run by rules in the back end, and you're allowing your local rules maintainers to manage this stuff in the rules interface. That's the idea behind this. And there it is. So I also provide this green box here. This is a place where I'm allowed to do some text output to you. So I've given you the name of the users you can use and some of the stuff on how to modify anything you'd want to do. And the code changes, this doesn't really apply to these. So it's kind of fun that they do this. You can check this out. But if we do that, you're not going to find anything in there that's really useful. Really don't know what he's going to clone out of here anyway. I haven't looked at one of these in quite a while. Not much, apparently. So it looks like there's code in there. But I guess you can throw something into the deployments directory. Probably. No. No idea. Because what I've uploaded and put up there isn't even in the deployments directory here locally, so it's not pushing it that way. No idea what we would use that for. The whole idea being you're using a more complicated service that's hosted in the actual application that you're dealing with. Okay? So there's the rules one. And we pretty much have some room left. Yeah, okay. Make sure. So that's, for example, using the rules one, and now the BPM one. And I put a link here. This will take you to all the example cartridges that I just talked about. So you have the ability to do empty ones, and those are the ones that I already have installed that I was saying to the guy, BPM Suite, what is it? PaaS 1, yeah, here we go. So these are all Aerogear BPM Suite. Now whether you run this locally, I can spin it up locally and show it to you, it looks exactly the same. So it's just what it is. So if we go into the administration section, you can see that this one, so these are online from my workshop, so sometimes you find really funky stuff in here. So it's nice to be able to go in here and check it out. This is a Git backend for the project. You can see the history and stuff. So we can go look at the project. This is a rewards thing. So somebody's actually been busy in here, it looks like, trying to do my lab. I have no clue what they've been doing in here. They pretty much broke it, it looks like. Probably deleting stuff or something like that. Okay, whatever. So we can go back over here and clean this out. Just delete it. Should be cleaned up. Make sure all the windows are closed that were open. And then you can create a new repository, new stuff. Go over and check it out. So this is old stuff. New item, we need to create a project first. So now we have a project. All kinds of fun stuff. You can put anything you want in here. So you can do a business process, whatever you want. It's all kinds of stuff to do inside there. When we take one of the more fun ones, so like the rewards one, you'll see this one is exactly the same idea. This is a cartridge setup like we just looked at. It has a manifest file here we can copy. Did I select that or not? Copy address. We can kickstart that over here. Go down to the bottom, put it into the code anything window. And my BPM, at least a medium. And you see he's put that manifest file in the cartridges as if I'm trying to import code from someplace, which I am. And away we go. So this will preload demos for you. And it will take a little bit of time. So what are you guys thinking of your hammer so far? That's the whole idea behind the... It's quite flexible in what you can do. There's really simple things at the PaaS level all the way up to complex stuff coming along for the xPaaS level. And you're going to see more and more of this stuff coming out as we move forward, as Red Hat as a company anyway. And quite a few other organizations are also pushing these kind of toolings into the cloud too. If you go down here at the bottom, you get an idea of what these things are about. Show some pictures and stuff. So there's a business process that goes through here. It's like submitting a reward for an employee, and you can like evaluate it. Shows a human task form pop up, and it's all the BPM stuff that you'd want to do with the tooling. So I know that that's not the major focus of the talk, but that's the idea behind it. So where's the? You see, it does take a little while. We can take a look when it pops up. So we take the one that we already had open. What did we do with that? You can also go back here and you can clone a repository. So if you can get one from somewhere, and I have somewhere just the actual project to be rewards project here, repo. So we can clone this one in. I think we have to use the HTTP though. The Git ports are closed inside of a cartridge. It's a good example. So we go back over here while he's still going. So rewards. In the demos, add an URL and clone it. You see here he's done. So we can get rid of that silly stuff we had. And I misspelled rewards, as you see. Go over to the project authoring. He's saying that because this doesn't exist anymore, what I have open. So he's not going to like me there. You see, you can go down here into the files and look at some of the stuff that's going on in here, the resources, and open our BPMN2 files and all kinds of stuff going on in here. See if we got it here. Okay, you see the cartridge installed. You see I have a bunch of users defined. This is because when you run this demo, you have different things you can do with the human tasks and different roles. So we have different users if you wanted to log back in and out and prove that that actually works. You can also just hang out as Eric S. I use my name for the admin everything. Continue on to the overview page. I keep all the passwords exactly the same. So go to Business Central. It's one of the links that's provided right there. We log in. BPM Suite. And he's spinning them up for the first time, so it's going to take a little bit to load, depending upon how they're doing. No, please don't do that. So there you go. And you see it's preloaded with the process. It's trying to open it already. So the designer's going to pop up here in a second with the process. This is a rather large WAR inside the product being loaded here for the first time on the server. So then it's, because it's EAP, it's now going to download all the, or include all the dependencies that it needs at this time. So it takes a little bit the first time you load it. But you can also look at like the forms. These are the task forms, form modeler and things like that. Going to load these up. More interested in the other one anyway. But it gives you an idea of what we mean by xPaaS, I hope. So we've looked at an application platform PaaS. We've looked at the mobile PaaS. We've looked at the BPM PaaS, and we've looked at even some of the stuff on the side. Showed you how to put a cartridge together a little bit. Using the manifest file, how you can load that. I tried to show you a few of the sneaky stuff in between, like how to mess with the configuration so you can use different users or maybe put marker files into your stuff so you don't always rebuild the server or rebuild all your WARs. And we've loaded some of the difficult stuff. See, there's the designer. It's finally sorted out and working. So you can play with this and add anything you want in there. Just drag and drop whatever. But this is just an application in the cloud. So this is the services that you're offering to somebody in a very automated way, so they can do their BPM stuff in their organization. Same thing with the rules. Same thing with the camel routes and the whole Fuse deployment. What's kind of interesting on the integration side is, and some of the stuff that they're working on. This is the initial release of our iPaaS. One of the things that don't really account for or want you doing, of course, is with your 3 versions of, or your 3 instances that you set up like a cluster. A lot of questions we get around that. How do I do a cluster? Yeah. You can do that if you want to hard code those IP addresses into your, so the actual URL of what each node is. That's not really the way it's supposed to work. So that's a little bit more the enterprise side, right? You got to think of these as loose, individual pieces that you're spinning up in the cloud here. These are not really meant to be run that way. If you want to load balance and that kind of thing, you turn on the scaling. Then they put a load balancer in front of it and use all your different gears to deal with that stuff. Okay? So try to keep that in mind. I hope you're enjoying the hammers. I've also included a little bit of the links to most of the stuff that's in here. So please do not forget this stuff is online right here. So you mastering xPaaS on the Red Hat Cloud. I'll definitely leave that online for a while. In the slides in there, you'll also find how to spin it up yourself on your own OpenShift instance. We've got a bit of time left, but instead of standing here and watching cartridges spin up and stuff, I want to give you the chance to ask questions about anything you have. And I have a really hard time seeing you guys here because there's like this big light in my face. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody got an app to show me in a minute, so come on down and get a shirt. Yeah? Okay. I'm going to try to rephrase that so everybody hears that, because this is the perfect question, and it's the first one, and please do not take offense if I'm going to answer it 2 ways. He says, he's very curious about how security patches are applied. So I'm assuming you're talking like to the cartridges, right? To the EAP platform or to whatever. How are the patches applied? Who remembers here my infrastructure as a service slide? Repeat after me. There's always one guy that asks this stuff. I don't care, right? I don't care. No, that's not really fair, right? The upgrades you're going to see in the background for OpenShift, speaking for OpenShift Online, what we're dealing with and what we're playing with, you're going to see that they do upgrades or they'll do maintenance windows. These are when the patches are being applied and things like that. Physically, how that happens in the background, things like an enterprise application cartridge for an xPaaS cartridge, you're getting a new release with a new complete product that's been patched in the background and stuff like that. Patches to versions of Ruby or PHP or whatever, that's happening some magically way in the background, because really, I don't care. That's something that they're spinning up. I'm assuming, and I can't remember exactly, it's been a long time since I've been a PHP developer, but you can check versions and see if they have been patched or not, just by, I'm pretty sure when I was developing, there was a way to check that kind of stuff. So might not be as up to date as you like it, but then again, why not apply the patch yourself once you get it sorted out and do the do-it-yourself cartridge? So on the one hand, I don't care. The other hand, yeah, there's some magic going on in the background, but I don't know the details either. I don't follow that. I just want to use it. I don't want to. I don't want it to be transparent. I want it to be. I don't want to know what they're doing down there. Yeah. 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 Fair enough. Okay. Now we have a different comment here. It's about if he makes his own cartridge, like what I was showing you with the manifest file, and you saw the 6.2 there that I was using. If you want to upgrade that, put patches against it and that kind of stuff, that's definitely your prerogative. You can do that. It's not as simple as unzipping an EAP version and just putting it in there. There's a bit of stuff going on to make sure that all the components talk to each other because of the limitations of the cartridge. Think very quickly. Local host. These things are infrastructurally run on random machines and stuff, and they use a lot of proxying underneath the water to hide that stuff. So the physical address inside the machine is not 127.0.0.1, right? There's a whole range of stuff under 127. We're getting into the space, I don't care, but it's how they do that stuff. So they have, if you log in SSH with one of those things and do an export in the shell and look at what the options are that have been set in the environment, you'll see a lot of OpenShift underscore something. And these are variables that are used to reference that. So in your app, if you physically need to deal with a certain port or a certain aspect of the machine, like a database admin user, they have an OpenShift underscore DB user. You can use that variable instead of having to look up the physical name, so it'll transport better across instances. Also, something I didn't show you that's kind of interesting. You saw me deleting them right and left, right? Spinning them up, delete them, spin them up, delete them. You have 3 gears. Take a look at backup. There's RHC backup. Basically what he does is he takes that whole instance, tarballs it down locally for you. You can throw it away. When you spin up a new instance of the same type, you can push that tarball back up and you're back where you started. So you don't have to lose your app. That's kind of a good one to know about. Okay, look at some of the cartridge stuff I put together. That'll help you get an idea of what. There's about 5 or 6 in there, so there's plenty of them to look at. Anybody else? Any more infrastructure questions I can knock down? Those are the easy ones. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, because the idea is to get you going in it, to get you started, to get you excited about it, to get you wanting to use it. Oh. Yes, you can. The question is, can you connect to MySQL, for example, database from outside the cartridge? Yes, you can, but you remember the port forwarding stuff I talked about? You need to turn that on. And when you do that, you're going to see that you're externally accessing through the IDE, for example. There's tooling for that. Any other questions? Well, then I give you an extra 20-minute break. Have fun. Be nice to me on the machine out front when you're grading this. Anybody got any apps done? And there's only one T-shirt left, because I've been ragging on the window guy. You can have a T-shirt. Excuse me. I got some stickers down here if you guys want to take some stickers back for your laptop. Thank you for your time.